So EcoPeace works in two levels. We have bottom-up programming, where we're very involved in education. We train Israeli, Palestinian, Jordanian teachers on the importance of climate, and particularly a climate diplomacy program, where through the teachers we're training young people that dialogue through diplomacy is the only way that will help us to resolve the issues that we face, and that the climate crisis is a common threat is something that we'll only be able to deal with if we deal with it together. So we have extensive education programs, but we also have advocacy programs. So we undertake our own research, but we undertake research that is aimed to advance policy initiatives. So projects like Project Prosperity. EcoPeace is the brainchild behind the idea that Israel and Palestine have the comparative advantage to produce desalinated water at scale and at price that can supply water and meet the climate crisis needs of Israelis, Palestinians, and Jordanians together. And on the other hand, the vast desert areas of Jordan can produce the renewable energy to power the desalination plants and meet our climate objectives by selling renewable energy from Jordan to Israel and to Palestine. The Israeli-Jordanian element has actually moved forward quite rapidly and led to political agreements with $1 billion worth of investment moving forward in an MOU that was signed by Israel, Jordan, the UAE under the leadership of John Kerry in the previous administration. We've also played a critical role in dealing with the sanitation crisis of Gaza before this horrific period, where we helped move from zero treatment of sewage to $250 million worth of investments and the building of 4 modern sewage treatment plants in Gaza, because we were able to highlight that failure to deal with the sanitation crisis in Gaza doesn't just stop in Gaza, and the sewage flowing from Gaza to the Mediterranean was being carried up the Mediterranean coast, partly responsible for the intermittent closure of desalination plants in Israel. So we highlighted that nature knows no borders, and therefore policies and investments are going to have to reflect that. And that's what opened the gateway for that type of investment on the Palestinian side to improve the sanitation and people's livelihoods, in fact, on both sides. So, since the events of October 7th and the horrific war and suffering, firstly, as an organization, with staff in Israel, Palestine, and Jordan that all work together, we actually first of all hired therapists for our own staff, because we knew that we were going through terrible trauma. So we needed to help ourselves before we could really help the broader communities. But in parallel, we led humanitarian efforts, both of the purchase and distribution of water in Gaza, but also in trying to change policies, for instance, in reopening pipelines from Israel to Gaza to supply water, again showing the lose-lose, that if there isn't water in Gaza, if there isn't fuel to deal with the movement, the removing of sewage from urban areas, then the impacts are horrific for the people in Gaza, but also in Israel. And that type of advocacy and that type of humanitarian intervention has led to some positive results, not only through our work clearly, but also in cooperation with the international community, with other actors. So certainly in the initial months, the climate issues were not the main focus, but subsequently in these last 6 months, even though we're still in the midst of a war, the population this summer again have experienced the hottest summer on record. So the climate crisis is very real in the Middle East. It's not a theory of a 1.5 degree increase in temperature. we've already experienced a 2-degree increase in temperature. The Eastern Mediterranean is already 2 degrees warmer than the 50s, and we're expecting an additional 4-degree increase in temperature. So the climate crisis is something that we feel today and that we see in our education programs. All of our education programs are today oversubscribed in the middle of the war. Palestinians and Jordanians and Israelis, university students, young professionals that are engaged with us understand that these are the issues that we have in common, and maybe by working together to solve the climate crisis, we can rebuild trust. We can help diffuse the conflict and the violence that we're currently living in. It really feeds the need, all of us as humans. We need to see hope. And oddly enough, the climate crisis, in the sense that it will only be resolved through cooperation, can provide some of that hope. And that's some of the work that we lead, and we see the positive response. What makes me optimistic is the young people that are involved in our program, whether it's students that are involved in the programs through teachers, or whether it's young professionals, young university students. You can see in their eyes that they refuse to give in to this reality, that they want to see a better future, and that they can see through the dialogue that we help create that there is someone to talk to on the other side that sees them and is listening to their reality. Because, you know, sadly, in the midst of extended conflict, you have a sense that it's only your side that's suffering. Your media doesn't show the suffering of the other side. And therefore you see the other simply as an enemy. But the climate crisis and environmental issues that don't know borders helps bring people together and see the humanity, that we all are dependent on clean water. And if we don't clean water, if we don't respond to the climate crisis, then the message that we often send as EcoPeace, because the conflict is about land, the land that we're fighting for, the land that we claim to love, will not allow us to live if we don't reverse our thinking and don't see each other and the need to work with each other in order to indeed live in prosperity and dignity for everyone on this land, on this holy land.